where we do exactly that. Welcome to Troubleshoot. I'm your host, Divya Rajan. Today we're talking about something that affects us all, the pandemic and mental health. It's no secret it's been a difficult process for all of us. People have lost income, their social lives, and worst of all, family members. This pandemic has touched everybody in some way. Well, today I want to remind you that you're not alone in this. So let's come together and talk about what's happening. And most importantly, let's talk about how we're feeling. Joining us today is Zara. Joining us today, we have Zara. Welcome, Zara. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. I just finished school, so just graduated university. So now I'm kind of that interim period where I'm not really a student for the first time in my life, and I'm just about to start my career. So a little bit about me is I'm 23 years old, and
That's really cool, and that's very exciting for you. So today we're talking a little bit about what the pandemic is like in regards to mental health. So my first question to you is, how has the pandemic affected your mental health?
so I would say initially it was really difficult because like overnight all of our routines disappeared, all of our like external distractions and stuff kind of went away, and all I really had access to, me and most other people, was just work and then your own thoughts, right? So that was really scary initially, but I think that over the past year, like having the ability and the opportunity to get to know myself a little bit more, not really always by my own choice, but just having that has been a really cool journey. And I think that it's affected it in a lot of different ways. Initially, of course, it's really intimidating, but I think overall, I think it's a positive change to have the opportunity to spend time with your thoughts and to get to know them better.
That's incredible to say. I know a lot of people are very scared when it comes to being alone with their thoughts, and I think that was the hardest part of this pandemic, is to have all these exterior factors removed from our lives. What were the factors about the pandemic that specifically made it difficult for you?
So a few things come to mind. I think first and foremost is like a lack of control and a lack of routine. I personally really depend on scheduling every part of my day, whether it's work or my social activities, even running errands. So not being able to plan for the next day and not being able to plan anything on my own terms, I think that was really hard to come to terms with. The second thing I think that comes to mind is, I would say, just a lack of external stimuli. I found maybe around the second lockdown that myself and most of the other people I spoke to were kind of in a situation where we felt like we were living the same day over and over again. Before the pandemic, you have an opportunity to see different things every single day on your commute to work or when you go and get a coffee or something like that. Something changes, but not having any of that, just it's really repetitive. And I think that's probably the hardest thing.
You know, when you say that, what comes to mind is those movies where you keep reliving the same day over and over again. And you're completely right about that, is normally one thing will change at least. And especially for somebody who was a student up until recently, it's so common for us to write out our schedule and have all these plans, and all of a sudden there is nothing now. Do you feel that before the pandemic, your mental health was in a better state?
That's an interesting question. I don't really know if I can say that my mental health is better or worse after the pandemic. All I know for sure is that I'm definitely far more aware of my mental health than I was before the pandemic. So it's more of just understanding myself more. And I think that when you look at it that way, then I would say that it's better to know what's happening with yourself, but also being confronted with that for the first time ever, I think that's a little challenging, definitely.
It takes a lot of bravery for you to come out here and speak about this. I would like to say that, and a lot of bravery for you to overcome this self, identity, to come here and like have to look at yourself and have to talk to yourself and really face what's going on in your head. So I want to commend you for that and for speaking out about it. So how do you keep a balance in your life during this pandemic? Of course, we can't leave our house and see our friends. So how did you communicate with people outside of your home?
I have tried to encourage myself to at least once a week get in touch with some friend. It's really hard to, especially at this time, it's really hard, I find, to stay in touch with all of your friends all the time. That's a lot easier to do when you can meet people face to face and things like that. But I find that sticking to a bit of a schedule, even in this matter, just kind of once a week, reach out to someone, make a phone call, talk to someone. That's been kind of keeping me going.
I think it's so crazy to think about that because before having one phone call would be almost nothing, but now it's an event. It's like somebody's called me today, and I can completely relate to that. Some people watching may also be having a difficult time right now, in regards to reaching out, having friends, or just dealing with being alone. So, do you have any words of advice for them?
Um, I think my only advice is in regards to getting to know yourself better. Do it freely and without any judgment at all. I think you should meet every part of yourself like you're meeting like an old friend, and just no judgment at all. Get to like face everything that you're dealing with, sort of head on. And I think that in terms of staying in touch with other people, just always remember that like almost everybody is experiencing similar things to what we are. And it can be really, really isolating when you get into a bubble and you feel like you're kind of on your own dealing with all of this. But just keeping in mind that there are so many people that can relate to those feelings of isolation. And there are so many people that can relate to, wanting to talk to somebody, but not really having the courage to reach out and say, hey, I need to have a conversation with someone. But like encouraging yourself to do that a little bit, I think it's really important. So.
I really hope our audience listening can take those words to heart. I know how hard it is to look at yourself as a friend. It's so easy to judge ourselves and be compassionate towards other, but self-compassion is such an important topic, especially during this pandemic. I really thank you for your advice, and I'm sure people out there watching can resonate with a lot of what you said. So thank you for joining us today, and I hope to have you back very soon.
Thank you so much, Divya. It was wonderful talking to you.
We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
जिंदगी मुश्किल तो है। मंगल, शनि, राहु, केतु, भूत, प्रेत, जिन्न, किसी की बुरी नजर, घर परिवार या व्यापार में भी मुसीबतें, घर और काम पे वास्तु दोष, सिगरेट, शराब या किसी और नशे की आदत। हल है, मुझसे बात करें। मैं और आप मिलके ढूंढ लेंगे रास्ते। डोंट वरी, विल फिक्स इट।
काव्या होम्यो केयर, काफी इलाज जहां बेअसर हो जाते हैं वहां से शुरू होता है होम्योपैथी का असर। बच्चों से लेकर बुजुर्गों तक, नए से लेकर कई पुरानी बीमारियों तक, जैसे एलर्जीज, एस्मा, आर्थराइटिस, हेयर लॉस, स्किन डिसऑर्डर्स, माइग्रेन्स, मेल या फीमेल हेल्थ इश्यूज, डाइजेस्टिव डिसऑर्डर्स या पाइल्स, मेंटल हेल्थ इश्यूज, हार्ट प्रॉब्लम, डायबिटीज और फॉर एनी काइंड ऑफ एक्यूट और क्रॉनिक डिजीजेस हमारे होम्योपैथ से मिले, जिनको 20 साल का लंबा तजुर्बा है। काव्या होम्यो केयर, जहां से शुरू होता है हेल्दी लाइफ का सफर। 6477602779 काव्या होम्यो केयर।
ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਓਗੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਿੰਡ ਵਰਗਾ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਪਾਓਗੇ। ਖੂਬਸੂਰਤ ਸੈਟਿੰਗ ਅਤੇ ਲਜ਼ੀਜ਼ ਖਾਣੇ, ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰੀ ਮੱਛੀ ਜੋ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਹਰੀਕੇ ਪੱਤਣ ਦੀ ਯਾਦ ਦਿਵਾਏਗੀ। ਸਾਗ ਤੇ ਮੱਕੀ ਦੀ ਰੋਟੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਖੁਸ਼ਬੂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬਾਰ-ਬਾਰ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਖਿੱਚ ਲਿਆਏਗੀ। ਚਾਹੇ ਵੈਜੀਟੇਰੀਅਨ ਖਾਣੇ ਖਾਓ ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਨਾਨ ਵੈਜੀਟੇਰੀਅਨ ਦਾ ਮਜ਼ਾ ਉਠਾਓ, ਬਸ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਹੀ ਆਓ। ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਹੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ।
Welcome back. Now joining us today is Amanpreet. Welcome, Amanpreet. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, myself Aman, and I came to Canada in July 2020, like in the middle of pandemic. And I'm a dentist from India, and I'm here with you talking now. Yeah.
Well, that's very surprising to have to come here in the middle of this pandemic. How has the pandemic affected you emotionally?
I would say it has affected not only me but everyone around me a lot, because the situation is quite uncertain and nobody knows when it's going to be resolved, and it's been stressful for me and my family and my friends. Everybody, we are like in panic state sometimes, and sometimes we're like, okay, holding hands on to shoulder each other so that okay, we can get through this. So yeah, it's been really stressful, and it's difficult to comprehend the situation in small words, but yeah, it is really difficult.
Especially when you say the situation in small worlds, because I'm seeing what's happening in India right now, and I feel we have such a privilege being here in Canada with all the resources available to us. Speaking to my last guest, we talked about some factors of the pandemic that made it specifically difficult for her, like not being able to see her friends and so on. So, what factors about the pandemic had made it specifically difficult for you?
Um, for me, like I came in July in the middle of the pandemic, and for the 14 days quarantine, initially that was so difficult to bear, and I cannot explain because I have no contact information. I don't have even the cell phone number that I can contact, and I couldn't go out. Like the initial excitement of coming to Canada like died away in the 14 days, and after that I was like, okay, now let's start the life, because 14 days were gone and I didn't have the job and no SIM number, no health card. There are so many things that we need to take care of in first 2 weeks. Those were put on the hold because of the COVID. So it was difficult initially, and now we are surviving.
I can't even imagine being in your shoes, coming into a new country, and having all this excitement for this new life, and then immediately being told that it has to be put on hold, especially things as basic as your health card that you really need. So I'm so sorry to hear that, but I'm very glad that you were able to get out of this. Do you feel like you were feeling better emotionally before this pandemic?
Um, as if we say in a retrospect, we never thought that such a situation would arise. But if we think now, yes, it was better. People were not afraid, like talking to each other. If somebody sneezes just next to us, we're like, okay, explain it, please. But previously we were like, okay, that person has the cold or flu or something. But yes, and people thinks differently and they judge you immediately if you sneezes or you like snort or something. Okay, I had the cold, and you have the fever. People around you, they behave to their behave changes their behavior or like completely. I
I
cannot
completely agree
explain.
with that. I've noticed a lot of people's natural anxiety levels have gone up. A sneeze is no longer a sneeze. Someone looking sick is no longer just somebody looking sick. I feel the general country is on edge now about really everything that's happening around them. So, are there any techniques you use to keep your mind healthy or to keep stress levels reduced while you're feeling this way?
Well, Netflix has been a lot of help lately, and yeah, just the social media, and yeah, I talk to my family on regular basis. And as you have mentioned earlier, that India is like in really bad condition. My sister, she is a doctor, and she's like a frontline warrior, and I like regularly make sure that I talk to her every day, because some of the instances I heard that some few doctors they commit suicide and so many people are dying every day. uh, that thing is also giving me anxiety here, like so many miles away from her. But I try to make sure that whatever happens physically we cannot control it, but at least on the mental level we can support each other. That's what we are trying to do.
That's a really good point you make. I can't even imagine what it would be like for your sister to be on a frontline worker, especially in India, and how it must feel for you not to be able to be next to her and make sure she's okay. And it takes a very strong person to be in either of those positions. And especially what you say with you keep in balance talking to your family and trying to stay on social media where we get connected. So is that how you keep a balance in your social life during this pandemic? Is there anything else you can do, like maybe go for a walk or do, tea with your family?
Yes, I go out for a walk sometimes, but my time's been like schedule has been really busy, so I don't get too much time. And I cook, like especially on the weekends. I try to make some food so that my mind is diverted and like not only physically but mentally relaxed also. And I try to sleep, like take my rest. I take it really seriously now. It's not like, okay, I'm sleeping 5 hours and I'm going 5 hours per day for a week. No, it doesn't happen now. I have to sleep like 8 to 9 hours so that I'm rested. At least I can begin my next day with full energy. So that's what I can say.
I hope a lot of people watching can understand how important rest is actually, because especially when you're dealing with so much stress, especially in your shoes, having, to worry about your family there and having to worry about yourself here, rest can affect so much about that, especially if you're exhausted, you start off your day this way and it just becomes a bad day. I myself also think that I've been taking my rest a lot more seriously since this pandemic. Some people watching right now may be having a difficult time. Maybe they're in the same place that you were when you first got here. So do you have any words of wisdom or advice for anybody who's having a difficult time right now?
Just a friendly suggestion that if you need to talk to somebody, like just send a message at least to a friend or family member, and I'm sure that we are there for each other. Everybody is trying to survive this difficult situation, and just tell everybody, yeah, listen and read the messages and listen to people around you. Sometimes those small replies, even hi, makes a difference for somebody else's life. And apart from that, there are so many organizations which are helping people on the mental health issues. Talking is important because when you are living in isolation state, like only around in the four walls, that's difficult. And yes,
And
that's
I
all
think
I
that's
can
why
say.
I'm doing this episode, so I can have this conversation started. I know in our culture it's not very common to be talking about our
Yes.
feelings and talking about how we feel right now, especially in a culture that tells you to tough it out. And I think because of that, a lot of people don't reach out for help. And I hope my audience watching today can see that it's okay to message your family, even if it's a hello, even if it's, can we talk for a little bit? So thank you for that advice. And I really enjoyed speaking to you today. I hope to have you back on our show very soon.
Thank you, Divya. Nice talking to you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
We'll be
Bye.
right back after these commercial messages.
काव्या होम्यो केयर काफी इलाज जहां बेअसर हो जाते हैं वहां से शुरू होता है होम्योपैथी का असर बच्चों से लेकर बुजुर्गों तक नए से लेकर कई पुरानी बीमारियों तक जैसे एलर्जीज एस्मा आर्थराइटिस हेयर लॉस स्किन डिसऑर्डर्स माइग्रेन्स मेल या फीमेल हेल्थ इश्यूज डाइजेस्टिव डिसऑर्डर्स या पाइल्स मेंटल हेल्थ इश्यूज हार्ट प्रॉब्लम डायबिटीज और फॉर एनी काइंड ऑफ एक्यूट और क्रॉनिक डिजीजेस हमारे होम्योपैथ से मिले जिनको 20 साल का लंबा तजुर्बा है काव्या होम्यो केयर जहां से शुरू होता है हेल्दी लाइफ का सफर 6477602779 काव्या होम्यो केयर
ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਓਗੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਿੰਡ ਵਰਗਾ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਪਾਓਗੇ ਖੂਬਸੂਰਤ ਸੈਟਿੰਗ ਅਤੇ ਲਜ਼ੀਜ਼ ਖਾਣੇ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰੀ ਮੱਛੀ ਜੋ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਹਰੀਕੇ ਪੱਤਣ ਦੀ ਯਾਦ ਦਿਵਾਏਗੀ ਸਾਗ ਤੇ ਮੱਕੀ ਦੀ ਰੋਟੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਖੁਸ਼ਬੂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬਾਰ-ਬਾਰ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਖਿੱਚ ਲਿਆਏਗੀ ਚਾਹੇ ਵੈਜੀਟੇਰੀਅਨ ਖਾਣੇ ਖਾਓ ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਨਾਨ ਵੈਜੀਟੇਰੀਅਨ ਦਾ ਮਜ਼ਾ ਉਠਾਓ ਬਸ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਹੀ ਆਓ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਹੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ
जिंदगी मुश्किल तो है मंगल शनि राहु केतु भूत प्रेत जिन्न किसी की बुरी नजर घर परिवार या व्यापार में भी मुसीबतें घर और काम पे वास्तु दोष सिगरेट शराब या किसी और नशे की आदत हल है मुझसे बात करें मैं और आप मिलकर ढूंढ लेंगे रास्ते डोंट वरी विल फिक्स इट
Welcome back. Today we have Miss Rekha Vaishnav joining us. Welcome, Miss. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to this forum. I'm a trained social worker in the psychiatric field. I work in the community mental health, and I also have started my own nonprofit, which is known as MEHAR, MEHAR. It is Mental and Emotional Health Awareness Renaissance. So MEHAR is basically committed to spread awareness around mental health by using art.
That's incredible. I'm definitely going to have to share that and look that up after this. Today we're talking a little bit about what the pandemic is like on people's mental health. So, in your experience, have you seen the pandemic affect mental health in people recently?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yes. The more severe impact is, of course, on people who already have some mental health diagnosis. Pandemic has also affected people who had the history of mental illness, and they may be stable now. And thirdly, I think it has also impacted people who were not having any mental health issues. So definitely there is a severe impact of pandemic and particularly lockdown and all on our mental well-being.
You know, it's a good point that you say there, especially with people who are already dealing with mental illness and having it heightened recently. So, why do you think the pandemic is worsening symptoms in people who are already dealing with mental illness?
Oh, it's actually a lot of negative things and a lot of things that are not in their favor. It has impacted their quality of life a lot. In fact, already they do not have that kind of great quality of life. Because of the pandemic, there is a decrease in social interaction. And social life is very, very important in terms of maintaining stable mental health and recovery. So pandemic has actually, there is a lot of deprivation for social interaction. There are lots and lots of additional stressors like uncertainty. There's a scarcity of resources. There's increase in cost of living. Things are getting so expensive, and most of these people are on the disability benefits, or they do not have the kind of sufficient income, uh, and they do not have the access to therapies, the groups, outings, all these social recreational treatment modalities that really is helpful for their mental health. They are not able to access those things because they are in the lockdown, and they because of the social distancing also. And many of them had a part-time job, but they lost the jobs because there's an employment cut. And when you don't have the occupational activities, it definitely hits your mental well-being. So, and a lot of people are not able to continue their treatment, either seeing the therapist, either seeing going to the counseling sessions, and not everyone is actually comfortable and competent in accessing everything on the digital platforms. So it's quite a kind of bad situation for people who are already diagnosed with serious mental health conditions.
You know, it's good points you make there, especially with therapists and not being able to have access to these counseling sessions, these therapists, and especially with outside resources, leaving your home, seeing your friends, seeing your family, especially dealing with, you know, depression, anxiety, or whatever you may be dealing with on a regular basis. Having this pandemic completely shut everything else out and leave you alone with your mental illness can be very strainful. So, as you said, you are part of a non-profit that helps raise awareness about this. So, can you tell me a little bit about what are some resources available for people who might need help and are looking for help right now?
It's a very good question. Unfortunately, I don't have very promising answers because, yes, there are resources available, but very few free and online and virtual type of resources. Now, in fact, the mental health system is working hard to develop the platforms, the digital platforms, starting the online groups, starting virtual sessions. The psychiatrists are seeing patients on virtual platforms. But that's only the medication model. But all these other treatment modalities, we are slowly kind of building up the system. A mental health system in Canada was actually, even before pandemic, it was breaking down because there was a number of mental health challenges were increasing, and there were not enough resources. So pandemic has really made it worse. And I can only say that there are good organizations, big organizations like CAMH. It's CAMH, Center for Addiction and Mental Health. Their website has lots and lots of links lots of good information on how you can take care during pandemic. CMHA is Canadian Mental Health Association. That's another big organization. They also equip their website with lots of links, resources. I would also say Mental Health Commission in Canada. They have good resources, good self-help resources, the links to the groups, Health Canada also. And apart from all these things, people who are able to afford, there are paid counseling and supportive therapies. And I think that it's work because definitely you need to improve your coping skills when you are really bombarded with so many negative factors and stressors. So if you are able to afford that and if you have benefits to cover the cost, there are good counseling services. You can also sign up and you can attend the sessions and you can learn some coping strategies and healthy lifestyle. And there are lots of free virtual spiritual groups, self-help groups. They are also pretty useful because spirituality has a very strong impact, positive impact on it. So those are all things I think people should try. And if it is really beyond your control, then I would suggest that definitely get referred to see a psychiatrist. So
I
those
like
are
that you touched on both the negative and the positive aspects of mental health in Canada. Like you said, before this pandemic, there weren't this many resources available or really awareness available online about what people go through. And now after this pandemic, people are releasing apps, posters, mental health, like awareness or online, like your organization is doing it through art, but I'm sure you guys were doing this before the pandemic. So how can mental health, affect our productivity? With everything you said before, it really affects how we see our day-to-day life. How can this affect what we do in our day-to-day life?
I think, the simple message and the simple tip is mind conceives and body achieves. Because if you do not have the healthy mind, your body is not going to feel healthy. And that's why, like, a healthy body is not possible with the, like, without the mind or the brain, which is or the mental health, which is strong, resilient, and kind of healthy. So definitely, in order to be productive and be happy and be strong during this really, really bad time, you need to really have a good mind. And I think mental disorders are something that impact our motivation, cognitive ability, judgment, overall functioning in the day-to-day life. So it's very, very important to take care of the mental health to lead a productive life.
I bring up this question because I think a lot of people don't realize that your mental health affects your physical health, and maybe it can be reduced down to laziness or not wanting to do something, and people completely miss the message that their brain is sick, and if your brain is sick, your body is sick. And I'm very glad that you brought up these points. Are there any techniques people can practice maybe at home to reduce their stress levels?
Yeah, sure. Simple techniques. If they follow, we we promise that, like, it will impact and it will improve their quality of life to a great extent. And I would say that the first and the foremost important is the stress management. It's core. It's core to maintain stable mental health, and you have to really work on using the positive stress management skills. Uh, Another thing during this time, I think it's very important that you identify and develop a good hobby, maybe reading, maybe writing, maybe connecting with art, maybe singing. There are, like, lessons available, learning an instrument, cooking, whatever, like, you feel good in doing. So you have to identify that kind of hobby. You have to adapt positive coping skills. You have to pay attention to your physical health, eating well, sleeping well, and some fitness activities in your daily routine is very important. And do not hesitate to ask for help and support if you are emotionally down, low, or if you continue to feel unwell mentally and emotionally for more than 2 weeks. You need to ask for help. You need some kind of intervention from an expert. Also, learning new skills is very important in this period of the pandemic, because the world is changing so fast, and new technologies and new ways to live your life are coming every day. So I think you should be open to learn new skills. You have to stay connected with positive, good friends, family, relatives. And also, if possible, if you're in a position, you offer support to someone who is in a worse situation than yours, because I think that's a very fulfilling experience, and it really gives you a good motivation. You feel good about yourself that, okay, I did something. That's a great feeling. So, and cut down on alcohol and drugs, because those things are increasing like anything right now during the pandemic, which is actually not a good sign, because those are not at all a positive coping strategies. So you have to consciously cut down on substance use, drugs and alcohol, and cut down on overdose of COVID news. So these are the things, like these are the simple tips, I think, that can make a huge difference.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's very interesting that you said pick up a hobby like art. I know myself, I love to paint and I love to draw. And it's, as children, we have all these hobbies to keep us busy, but as adults, we somehow let these go and let them take a back burner. And I don't think many people realize that just picking up a hobby that you enjoy can bring you so much happiness in your day. And I also like that you touched on drug and substance abuse. I've noticed a lot that during this pandemic, a lot of people are going to LCBO, going to buy drugs, and that's the only way they know how to cope. And they don't even think that there might be a better way, and that maybe these drugs and alcohol are causing more harm than positive. So thank you for your points, and I really hope my audience can hear and resonate with some things you said. And I really enjoyed talking to you today. We hope to have you back on the show very soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਓਗੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਿੰਡ ਵਰਗਾ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਪਾਓਗੇ। ਖੂਬਸੂਰਤ ਸੈਟਿੰਗ ਅਤੇ ਲਜ਼ੀਜ਼ ਖਾਣੇ, ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਸਰੀ ਮੱਛੀ ਜੋ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਹਰੀਕੇ ਪੱਤਣ ਦੀ ਯਾਦ ਦਿਵਾਏਗੀ, ਸਾਗ ਤੇ ਮੱਕੀ ਦੀ ਰੋਟੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਖੁਸ਼ਬੂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬਾਰ-ਬਾਰ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਖਿੱਚ ਲਿਆਏਗੀ। ਚਾਹੇ ਵੈਜੀਟੇਰੀਅਨ ਖਾਣੇ ਖਾਓ ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਨਾਨ ਵੈਜੀਟੇਰੀਅਨ ਦਾ ਮਜ਼ਾ ਉਠਾਓ, ਬਸ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਹੀ ਆਓ। ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਿੰਡ ਹੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ।
जिंदगी मुश्किल तो है, मंगल, शनि, राहु, केतु, भूत, प्रेत, जिन, किसी की बुरी नजर, घर परिवार या व्यापार में भी मुसीबतें, घर और काम पे वास्तु दोष, सिगरेट, शराब या किसी और नशे की आदत। हल है, मुझसे बात करें, मैं और आप मिलके ढूंढ लेंगे रास्ते। डोंट वरी, विल फिक्स इट।
काव्या होम्यो केयर, काफी इलाज जहां बेअसर हो जाते हैं वहां से शुरू होता है होम्योपैथी का असर। बच्चों से लेकर बुजुर्गों तक, नए से लेकर कई पुरानी बीमारियों तक, जैसे एलर्जीज, एस्मा, आर्थराइटिस, हेयर लॉस, स्किन डिसऑर्डर्स, माइग्रेन्स, मेल या फीमेल हेल्थ इश्यूज, डाइजेस्टिव डिसऑर्डर्स या पाइल्स, मेंटल हेल्थ इश्यूज, हार्ट प्रॉब्लम, डायबिटीज और फॉर एनी काइंड ऑफ एक्यूट और क्रॉनिक डिजीजेस हमारे होम्योपैथ से मिले, जिनको 20 साल का लंबा तजुर्बा है। काव्या होम्यो केयर, जहां से शुरू होता है हेल्दी लाइफ का सफर। 6477602779 काव्या होम्यो केयर।
Welcome back. Today we talked about something that most people are afraid to talk about, and I want to commend my guests for their bravery. Mental health is definitely not an easy topic, and I hope this inspired you to talk to your loved ones, because you don't need to feel alone, because none of us are alone.